I'm sorry, it just took me a sec. Not ready yet, but I guess I will do this video anyway. It's like pretty much while I'm getting ready and stuff. Okay, so I wanted to do basically a video on because I feel like on Swirling, but it's not gonna be like the other ones. I don't think I really addressed this in my other videos because I feel like a lot of the time people don't really address the fact that like people people assume that every family comes from a certain way, and this is how I feel like with Swirling is like many people assume black families are generally very friendly to white people, and then like that black people can't be racist, things like that, you know. And for me, personally, I've experienced quite the opposite. Yeah, for me, I mean, I did grow up with like when I was like it's weird because you would think I didn't because I come from a mother who's um only with men of other races basically, and I was kind of raised that way. But the thing is, for me, I was raised basically where, well, I was raised differently. Like, for one, growing up when I was like as a kid, they kind of, like, some families, you know, they think, like I said, like, they think black American families are accepting to everyone. I was growing up, I had it more like, well, my mom's side, like the family on that side, they really like white people. I've said it several times. My father's side is from the nation, and my mother's side from the nation, but my mom's side, they weren't really from the nation. After a while, they changed like real quick, cause they didn't really. They thought something was up, so then they were like, "We're done." So for me, I mean, like the side of the family may not be Asian, but they still don't really like white people, really. Which is weird, because most of my family, my cousins, are like me, like mixed on one side and black on the other side. So much for hating, you know, white people, but at the same time, you're willing to like be with and fuck, like marry, um, you know, mixed race people and people who aren't quite black. Like I have two cousins, I'm not even sure if their mother's black or if they're actually just straight up Hispanic, half Hispanic. I'm not really sure about that. Um, but I know, like my mom's, she was my dad, and he was mixed race. But then my mother is very different. She was like a black sheep of the family, right? So that's the thing. People always try and like perceive like swirling as a way to go upper or level up or whatever. And that's the thing for me. The way I was raised, it wasn't raised like that black is the lowest thing. You know. My mother, for one, she kind of was like of the type that was okay with white people, but Hispanic people is a whole different story. My mother did not like Mexican men, Mexican women, Mexican people, okay? And personally for me, it's confusing. Like, I've had bad experiences with Hispanic people. Yeah, I like Hispanic men. It's weird. I don't know. I really don't. It's just like, well, and the thing is, it's weird. It's iffy, back and forth. Because it's like this. Sometimes I'll experience negativity from Hispanics. Sometimes Hispanics won't really recognize things right racially. and they won't be, but they'll still be racist. Like, you'll still hear from them on racism. For one, like, when I was working my last job, my last low wage job outside of the home, there's this one guy, he was like a manager, and he did not like Hispanic, not like black people. He liked his brown people, and he held them high, like he would serve them, make sure that they got their stuff. But then he was all scared of black people, as if like, oh, they're black, they're gonna be angry, they're gonna cause issue if we make any mistakes and stuff like that. He said that outright to someone else. He wasn't black, he was Asian. But like, that's what I mean. It's like they have some sense of racism in that sense. It was crazy. He said it right in front of me. And it was weird. Like, he didn't like to think of me as black. Because he wanted to be favorable to me, he wanted to be nice to me. If he thinks of me nicely, then he would see me as non-black person, which is really crazy. I know my mother said they do that too to her. She's a dark-skinned black woman, so it has nothing to do with phenotype. It has to do with more like stereotypes of black people. And so, like, I've had those experiences. I've had other experiences that were just like uncomfortable, of like trying to misrace, so classify people, or if they don't, then they'll be uncomfortable with things that are like things that have to do with me that are black, like my hair, or like my natural hair texture, and like my skin can tan very much so. And like, if I take a picture when I'm darker and I get lighter and I show a picture, they might get uncomfortable with the variation there. I always feel very uncomfortable with that. Like, why do you care? Like, I've had people comment and think that they can comment just because they're a person of color. And that to me is offensive. That's racist, to try and make a distinction like that. As if something's wrong. It's not wrong to tan. Um, Other things I've experienced, like, I just have experienced, like, racism from those people where like they like discriminate against you and things like that. So I've had my share of problems, but I am not like my mother is different. Like, she will think like, Hispanics are messed up. All Hispanics are the ones that we see in the welfare office. All Hispanics are on their porch all day drinking and hitting on little young kids. You know, I don't think all Hispanics are that way. I kind of like think of it like some aren't. And for me personally, I kind of like, to me, it's like there's so many different kinds of Hispanics, and people always stereotype Hispanic people. Like, um, I've had it where people will act like Hispanics are only like Mexicans, and they're only like mestizo Mexicans racially. So when I say that my dad is part Hispanic, and then it's confusing because Latino is a term, and Latin American is a term, right? But Latin American people always think Latino people are Hispanic people and Hispanic people are Latino, and they're the same word. It is not the case. Someone who is Latino can be anything. Like, someone who is Latino could be Haitian, they could be Brazilian, they could be anything in this side of the continent that was colonized by the French, the Spanish, or the Portuguese. Latin-based languages. And I don't know, do people not know French is a Latin language, or I don't know, because it's like people don't pay attention to that French is actually a Latin language. So technically all those people would be Latino. So for my father's side, technically he would be Latino, except maybe 1/4 of his heritage, I think. Cause his grandmother is Black American and Blackfoot Indian, but the other sides are actually technically Latino. So, I mean, with that quality in there, it's always like, for one, so many people want to say I'm Hispanic too or Latino, and I feel that weird because I'm like, I don't know, my mother's Black and my dad is mixed race, so I mean, I side with my Black side. And I find it weird that some people would try and associate that with me. But, I mean, I'm not too offended by it either, because, I mean, like, technically, I am part Dominican, and then I have Latin American heritage as well. But I don't really, to me, I just think, like, I don't, I don't know. I think, like, there's too many assumptions on American people in that sense. And with that said, it kind of transitions into this. I kind of feel like a lot of Latin American people are assuming that they can't be racist because they're brown. And to me, I'm like, that's not true at all. I mean, they can be racist. Um, but I personally don't think that all of them are racist just because some are racist. You get what I'm saying? There's a lot of Latino people who are, who have been here a long time. And they're well associated with the people in this country. And, there's some well accepting Hispanic people. So to me, that's why I do not completely have those issues with them. But I do, like, acknowledge that, yes, a lot of them, there is that problem of racism. So I'm not saying that all, but many are. Um, So growing up, I mean, like, I've always been taught never to, like, be with, like, a Latino person, basically, or Mexican or Hispanic person. Because my mother includes, like, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans with Mexicans. That's pretty ignorant, but that's how she does it. Especially Cubans and Puerto Ricans. Dominicans, sometimes she wants to go in black or whatever, so it depends on it. There's some people that she doesn't. So, anyway, as a swirler for me, I mean, I've always had experiences where I've dealt with a lot of shame and, like, secretiveness on it because, like, I mean, you don't want to really be openly, into Latino man when your family doesn't accept that, you know what I mean? And it it's like, I don't know, you come from a more racially insensitive family in that regard, you're gonna have that issue. And this applies for both types of swirlers. I mean, like someone who is attracted to Asian people, for example. I totally think of it like with that, black people can definitely be racist towards Asian people all the time, and they can be racist towards white people. Some are racist against black people. It just depends on the family, really. Um, so I just feel like a lot of time people don't pay attention to that. Like sometimes it's just not like accepted because that's kind of like the family. Like people think of white people as the devil, or people think of Hispanics as illegals, who are all illegals, who just are no good, and they're dumb. That's how my mother is. And it's hard, trying to, find someone who's good and doesn't fit that stereotype and trying to, like, if you find that person, you know, and not have them, like, stereotyped by your family as someone no good if you ever want to bring them around your family, you know. So, yeah, that's generally what I struggle with, and I feel like a lot of the time with like people talking about their interracial relationships, people seem like they don't really talk about that, like the um, discriminatory means and ways in a family against other races when it comes to interracial dating and stuff where, you know, people may not accept it in the family. In fact, I've heard like one lady, she was actually talking about how Hispanic um, men were more accepted to her by the black men she was around because they were always talking against white men and stuff. And like that's what I mean. Like some families are like that. Some families talk against white people more often, but then there's other families who are friendly. Like I said, my mother has always been with white men. Therefore, my existence is because you know she liked to swirl like with people who look white, basically. And my dad was white passing. Um, and so I mean like no more like racially ambiguous, but so I mean like I think that's generally how people don't really pay attention to it. Because some people come from families who are like racist against black people. So if they're with someone of another race, they think of it as a thing is better. But if you weren't taught that black was the lowest thing, then you kind of come off like at a point where like you weren't really conditioned to see things that way in the first place. You know what I mean? So that's generally my concern and problem with the whole situation. Um, and I feel like maybe putting this video out can give a different perspective on my experience. Because I've always been like, if I have half Hispanic children, it's gonna be hard, you know, raising them and them being around my side of the family who probably won't accept them because they look more Hispanic. It's already like for me, I always, not always, but often, I get confused for those type of people. And my side of the family doesn't really have that much issue with me that much, I don't think. But I mean, like, if I did it, like, and had like have Hispanic children, then like his, well, technically they'd be more than half. So then they look more Hispanic, and I think that would make my mother really negative, and probably some of my other family because they don't really like whiter people. Really, you if you look more like white people, they're more positive. For example, with me, they fucking hate me because they like it's weird. Like some of my family, the males look whiter. Like my older cousin looks white skinned, and he looks more white passing, I would say. Maybe Jewish, Middle Eastern, something like that, you know. But like with me and like female cousins, I only have one female cousin who is, you know, the same, like she's not the same color as me, she's lighter skinned. She's like really, really light skinned. And she looks more, yes, Hispanic, Middle Eastern, something like that. And like, all my other cousins, the female cousins, the Harwicks, they really hate on me because I think because they look more Caribbean, and that's what I mean. The family sometimes they just think, oh, she's like, they would think really bad things of me and stuff and try and like make up stuff about me because they were uncomfortable with how I turned out looking. And it's always been that way, honestly, because I look more like my dad's side. I never look like my mother's side. So, I mean, that's why I'm like, I really expect them not to accept them. But I kind of feel like they don't really accept me, so I wouldn't be too big of a deal. But my mother, especially, that's always been an issue for me. Yeah, I guess I'll be down with it.